Welcome. We are looking today at a character who is, well, instantly recognizable across the globe.
Instantly.
You just need to see that battered, slightly worn suitcase, a blue duffel coat,
Right.
and an absolute commitment to good manners. And, of course, a deep, unwavering love of marmalade.
Can't forget the marmalade.
We are, of course, talking about Paddington Bear. Today, we are going to fully unpack the history, the profound cultural impact, and the enduring legacy of this incredibly beloved fictional bear.
And that focus is paramount. Our mission today is to deliberately step away from simply, summarizing the linear storyline of Paddington's adventures.
Right, the A to B chaos.
Exactly, which spans decades. Instead, we are conducting a thorough, analytical exploration of what this character means to millions of people globally, and particularly within the context of British identity.
Okay.
We're tracing his historical roots as really an immediate symbol of kindness and immigration, tracking his colossal effect on popular culture through various media, and examining his modern relevance as a potent ethical touchstone.
Let's lay some groundwork then. For those who perhaps only know him from the recent critically acclaimed films, Paddington Bear was created by the British author Michael Bond, and he made his very first appearance on October 13th, 1958, in the book A Bear Called Paddington.
And he is, to be specific, an anthropomorphized spectacled bear. The scientific name is Tremarctos ornatus.
And he hails from darkest Peru, having been raised there by his Aunt Lucy.
And those foundational visual details are not just quaint. They are iconic because they speak to this whole theme of travel and displacement.
You have the old hat.
The signature blue duffel coat, which suggests warmth, protection against a foreign climate.
Right. And the sturdy suitcase.
And, of course, that ever-present love of marmalade sandwiches.
And Michael Bond was just relentlessly productive. The book series comprises 29 books that he penned himself.
It concluded posthumously in 2018 with Paddington at St. Paul's, and the scope of this is genuinely staggering. We're talking over 30 million copies sold worldwide.
30 million.
Translated into 30 languages across 70 different titles. This is truly a global phenomenon with deeply personal, very British roots.
Okay, let's unpack this cultural foundation, starting right at the very beginning, the precise moment of inspiration. This is where those profound themes of identity, empathy, and acceptance really begin, which is exactly where the true meaning of the character lies.
The origin story begins with the small, quiet, and singular moment. Michael Bond, while working as a BBC cameraman, was shopping in London on Christmas Eve in 1956.
Right.
He noticed a teddy bear sitting all alone on a shop shelf, and he purchased it. He later described it as looking rather forlorn.
Just a small, personal, slightly impulsive purchase.
Exactly. And that became the literal seed for this world-famous narrative of migration.
And here is where the story connects that small, lonely teddy bear to massive, defining historical trauma. Bond was extremely explicit about the deeper inspiration behind Paddington's arrival in London.
He was. It wasn't something added later.
No. His imagination was fundamentally shaped by the powerful and unforgettable sight of child refugees.
Specifically, two groups.
Right. Both Jewish children arriving from continental Europe seeking safety, and also London children being evacuated to the relative safety of the countryside during World War II.
That historical context is absolutely everything to understanding the bear's character. Those evacuee children, often sent far away from their parents to safety, frequently had luggage labels pinned to their coats.
Detailing who they were, where they were going.
Exactly. And that observation directly led to the famous, heartbreakingly simple note Paddington carries when he is found alone at the station. Please look after this bear. Thank you.
It just encapsulates the profound vulnerability of displacement in a few words.
It does.
And Bond himself constantly reflected on that parallel of displacement. He stated clearly that Paddington, in a sense, was a refugee, and he commented with true empathy that there is no sadder sight than refugees.
So this was not some retroactive academic interpretation added decades later.
Not at all. It was central, it was intentional, and it was emotionally resonant right from the character's inception in the late 1950s.
Precisely. The core image, a bear arriving alone, carrying only a single suitcase containing his few possessions and a label requesting help, is a direct, accessible analogy for childhood displacement and the need for immediate human kindness.
It makes the abstract concept of being a refugee incredibly immediate and, well, tactile for a young reader. Before we move on, we have to pause on one small detail that significantly impacted the bear's identity. the geographical correction.
Yes.
Bond originally intended for Paddington to come from darkest Africa, which was a common, somewhat generic and colonial era descriptor.
It was, but his agent rightly informed him that bears are not native to Africa.
A rather important detail.
A very important one, and that led to the change to Peru. Peru is the home of the spectacled bear, or the Andean bear, which is the only bear species native to South America.
So this small detail, forced by accuracy, actually anchored the character to a very specific, real, and non-European origin point.
It did. It reinforced the theme of the outsider seeking acceptance, making his Peruvian identity integral to his status as an immigrant in London.
Let's turn now to the Brown family, who are, in essence, the agents of acceptance and integration in this story. They discover Paddington sitting patiently on his suitcase at Paddington railway station in London.
And the naming of the character is a key moment in his adoption. When they ask for his name, the bear gives his original name in bear language,
Which is
a series of roars or growls, something the Brown children later describe as essentially unpronounceable.
So the family names him Paddington, after the station where he was found.
It symbolizes him shedding an identity that is functional only in his homeland and taking on a new geographical identity tethered to his new home in London.
Yet, even as he integrates, his core traits remain distinct. He is always intensely polite,
Very formal.
addressing people as Mr., Mrs., or Miss, almost never by their first names. He's inherently kind-hearted and known for genuinely trying so hard to get things right.
And it's this conflict between his intense effort to adhere to British manners and his natural accidental ability to cause chaos that really drives the humor in the narrative.
It creates a brilliant tension. He embodies the ideal immigrant who attempts to assimilate by mastering the local customs, yet his innate foreignness or lack of context leads to mayhem.
But the chaos is always innocent, never malicious.
Never.
Which allows the audience to immediately forgive him and sympathize with his struggle to understand the nuances of a foreign culture.
And he also has a marvelous, quiet technique for enforcing manners on others. The hard stare.
Yes, the hard stare, taught to him by his elderly Aunt Lucy.
And it's reserved for those who incur his strong disapproval, those who are unkind, or those who simply forget their social graces.
The hard stare is such an effective narrative device because it allows this inherently innocent character to wield subtle moral power against those who are unjust or unkind.
Without ever resorting to aggression or breaking his own moral code.
Exactly. The recipient, who is often Mr. Curry, becomes visibly flushed and embarrassed simply by the force of Paddington's disapproval. It's a nonverbal expression of his unwavering moral compass.
The theme of who is truly welcome and who acts as the foil to kindness is highlighted so clearly through the supporting characters in the Browns' neighborhood.
It is.
We have the antithesis of kindness in the Browns' next-door neighbor, Mr. Reginald Curry.
Mr. Curry is essential to the structure of the stories. He's consistently described as mean, nosy, arrogant, and bad-tempered.
He's the perfect representation of insular, unwelcoming prejudice.
He is. He sees Paddington not as a charming new neighbor, but as a subject to be exploited or complained about. He frequently attempts to take advantage of the bear,
Often hoping for free labor or a shared profit.
which inevitably backfires. He is always the one receiving his comeuppance when Paddington's misadventures go awry, and the reader always feels he deserves it.
And in complete contrast, the other key supporting character, Mr. Samuel Gruber, stands as a pillar of acceptance. And he brings the refugee theme full circle in a way that is profoundly moving when you know the backstory.
Mr. Gruber is Paddington's best friend and mentor. He's the antique shop owner on Portobello Road. They share elevenses daily, a secondary mid-morning snack.
Which involves deep conversation and simple outings. Mr. Gruber provides the historical and cultural context that Paddington needs to understand his new world.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here, and what Michael Bond specifically emphasized, is that Mr. Gruber was modeled directly on Bond's first agent.
And this agent was a German Jew who fled Germany during the rise of Nazism.
Arriving in Britain with just a suitcase and $25 to his name.
So that contextualizes their friendship beautifully. It means that within the tight microcosm of Windsor Gardens, you have Paddington, the spectacled bear refugee from Peru.
Being mentored and deeply befriended by Mr. Gruber, an older Hungarian immigrant who understood the experience of displacement firsthand.
Their relationship demonstrates the importance of mutual support, guidance, and shared experience for those adjusting to a new society.
It provides a positive, powerful model of cross-cultural acceptance and community building. It proves that finding a new home isn't just about charity, but about deep, shared connection.
That structural foundation of integrity, kindness, and the inherent refugee analogy is laid so perfectly in the books.
It is.
But that image of the bear in the duffel coat has exploded into a cultural phenomenon through merchandising and mass media. Let's move on and look at the evolution of a fictional icon through its adaptations and media presence.
It's important to realize how long it took for the character to become a physical toy. The book started in 1958, but the first official Paddington Bear stuffed toy wasn't manufactured until 1972.
14 years later.
By Gabrielle Designs, which was a small family business run by Shirley and Eddie Clarkson. This was a direct response to the massive, untapped commercial demand created by the books.
And there's a wonderful functional story behind the iconic Wellington boots. We all picture Paddington in them, but Shirley Clarkson initially dressed the stuffed bear in the Wellingtons.
Not as a fashion choice.
No, but specifically to help the stuffed toy stand upright. It was solving a manufacturing problem.
This is a perfect example of merchandise feeding back into the fiction. While Paddington had received Wellingtons for Christmas in the 1964 book Paddington Marches On, the toy solidified them as a mandatory part of his official uniform. It's an interesting loop between the necessity of commercial design and the development of the fictional iconography.
And for a piece of surprising trivia that connects this iconic toy to modern British television.
Yes.
The prototype of this first famous stuffed toy was a Christmas present for the Clarkson children, including Jeremy Clarkson,
who is now one of the most well-known British television presenters, famous for his strong, often controversial opinions.
It creates a peculiar juxtaposition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The character who is the epitome of gentle, polite British tolerance.
Being fathered, in a sense, by the family that produced a figure often celebrated for his outspoken, less-than-polite demeanor. It speaks to the ubiquity of Paddington within British culture.
From the physical toys, the bear jumped onto the screen. The television legacy of Paddington is long, starting way back in 1966 with serialized readings on BBC's Jackanory.
Read by the famous actress Thora Hird, and ITV quickly followed suit with their own readings on Once Upon a Time.
But it's a sad footnote in television history that we have to acknowledge the fragility of early archives.
It is. Sadly, no episodes of these very early televised readings from 1966 or the subsequent readings in the late 60s and early 70s survive in the BBC archives.
So those early visual interpretations of Paddington are now considered lost pieces of cultural media history.
They are.
The adaptation most people remember from that era, certainly those who grew up in the UK or saw it internationally, is a distinctive stop-motion series that premiered in 1976.
Animated and directed by the great Ivor Wood, who also brought to life other timeless classics like The Magic Roundabout and The Wombles.
That 1976 series had a truly unique and distinctive aesthetic. We should probably visualize it for you.
Yes. Paddington was a three-dimensional stop-motion puppet, which gave him texture and weight. But he was animated against surprisingly sparse, often gloomy two-dimensional backgrounds. These were frequently stark black and white line drawings.
This visual contrast created a look that was both charmingly tactile and slightly surreal. It gave the puppet the sense of stepping into a storybook illustration.
It did.
And the voice work was singular and central to the series' intimacy. Michael Hordern narrated the entire series.
Perhaps most impressively, he voiced all the characters himself. From Mr. Brown to Mrs. Bird to the villainous Mr. Curry.
Hordern's masterful performance gave the series a remarkable sense of unity and warmth, making it feel like a cherished story being read aloud by a single, beloved voice.
And that series had massive international reach, too. It appeared in the U.S. on PBS, then on Nickelodeon's Pinwheel, and later on premium cable channels like HBO and the Disney Channel.
So it embedded the character into the childhoods of multiple generations across the globe.
Following the Hordern stop-motion era, there were several subsequent animated versions produced for different markets. Hanna-Barbera produced a more traditional animated series in 1989.
Sonar Films followed in 1997.
And more recently, Studio Canal teamed up with Nickelodeon for a CGI series starting in 2019, which benefits from the vocal continuity established by the modern films.
Which brings us to the critically acclaimed film series starting in 2014. These really cemented Paddington's place as a modern, cross-generational icon.
They masterfully retain the character's integrity while utilizing cutting-edge technology. An animated Paddington character integrated seamlessly within a live-action London environment.
It's a lesser-known fact that the initial casting for Paddington's voice was actually different. The Oscar-winning actor Colin Firth was announced and worked on the project.
He did, but he ultimately withdrew. He made a very humble statement, acknowledging that he simply realized the bear doesn't have my voice.
Van Wishaw replaced him, and that decision was artistically crucial.
Absolutely. Wishaw has voiced Paddington in all 3 films, providing the character with his now signature gentle, slightly tentative, high-pitched, and immensely kind tone. It perfectly captures the character's mix of politeness and vulnerability.
Now, despite the film's overwhelming sweetness and goodwill, the first film, back in 2014, generated a moment of unexpected controversy.
Around its initial classification.
Yes, the British Board of Film Classification, the BBFC, initially gave the film a PG certificate, advising that it contained dangerous behavior, mild threat, mild sex references, and mild bad language.
That advisory description, particularly mild sex references, caused widespread amusement and confusion among the British public.
And reportedly, Michael Bond himself was totally amazed by the advice. It seemed utterly out of place for a character defined by his innocence.
The distributor immediately challenged the classification, which forced the BBFC to reevaluate.
They revised the wording to clarify the issue. They qualified the mild bad language as infrequent, referring to a single mumbled use of bloody. And they crucially changed mild sex references to the much vaguer term innuendo.
It demonstrated a moment where a modern structured classification system struggled to categorize the simple, innocent chaos derived from classic children's literature.
Regardless of that classification kerfuffle, the final product was clearly a success. The first film was a commercial hit and was nominated for the BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Film.
Which demonstrates its immediate cultural impact.
And the sequel, Paddington 2, released in 2017, somehow managed to surpass the first in critical acclaim.
It was universally praised. It held a perfect 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes for an extended period, which is almost unheard of, even for beloved family films.
The reason for this success lies in the film's fidelity to the character's core moral message.
The entire series is anchored by that simple, potent mantra taught by Aunt Lucy to young Paddington. If we're kind and polite, the world will be right.
That simple philosophy, applied without cynicism or irony, is what resonated so deeply with audiences who, I think, often feel overwhelmed by modern complexity.
I agree. And the casting for the films was also exceptional, ensuring that top-tier talent surrounded the animated bear.
Hugh Bonneville played the perpetually flustered but loving patriarch, Henry Brown.
And the sequels then introduce high-caliber antagonists, like Hugh Grant as the narcissistic former West End star, Phoenix Buchanan.
And Brendan Gleeson as the short-tempered, but ultimately kind prison cook, Knuckles McGinty. This level of talent invested in the material confirmed the gravity of the Paddington property.
And we should note that the third film, Paddington in Peru, which premiered in 2024, continued this trend, adding incredible actors like Emily Mortimer, Antonio Banderas, and Olivia Colman, ensuring the franchise retains its sophisticated, warm, and cinematic appeal.
There's also one political connection that became widely known after the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine that underscores the international reach of this character.
Right. Volodymyr Zelensky, who later became the president of Ukraine and a global symbol of resistance.
He voiced Paddington in the Ukrainian dubbing of both the first and second films.
That fact resonated globally when the invasion began, not just because he was a celebrity voice, but because the character itself, a symbol of displaced people seeking refuge, became inextricably linked to the leader of a nation facing massive displacement and war.
Hugh Bonneville publicly thanked President Zelensky for his role. It turned a piece of cinematic trivia into a moment of international solidarity.
The character truly has evolved from a children's book figure into a significant global icon, which brings us perfectly to our next section on his modern cultural imprint and real-world symbolism.
Yes, Section 3, Cultural Imprint and Symbolism Today. The bear doesn't just exist within the boundaries of books and film. He exists physically in the world, starting with the massive public art display known as the Paddington Trail.
The Paddington Trail was a fantastic, high-visibility public art event launched in 2014 to celebrate the first film's release.
Right. 50 large statues, each 3.5 feet tall, were placed all around London.
Near key landmarks, parks, and shops. They acted as a joyous, city-wide treasure hunt.
And these statues weren't generic. They were individually designed by various artists and celebrities, including high-profile names like Nicole Kidman, Emma Watson, and Hugh Bonneville.
This collaboration ensured massive media attention and civic engagement. And crucially, this had a strong charitable underpinning.
It connected the bear's spirit of kindness to real-world action.
Exactly. The proceeds from the auction of these statues went directly to the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, the NSPCC, raising a significant sum.
Furthermore, the bear's physical presence has extended internationally. There's a statue in Lima, Peru.
A statue donated by the British Embassy in Lima was unveiled in Parque Salazar, Miraflores, Lima, specifically celebrating cross-cultural links and acknowledging Paddington's Peruvian origin.
Beyond statues, Paddington has received high official recognition in the UK. He's been featured on official British currency and stamps.
Which places him squarely in the realm of national iconography. He first appeared on a Royal Mail first-class stamp way back in 1994, and again in the 2006 Animal Tales series.
Even more officially, the Royal Mint issued an image of Paddington sitting at Paddington Station on UK 50p coins in 2018.
Yes, for the 60th anniversary of the first book. And this is incredibly prestigious. It made Michael Bond only the second author, following Beatrix Potter, to have a literary character featured on the coin.
That act places Paddington in the highest pantheon of British literary and cultural figures.
It does.
We also see his commercial presence tied strongly to his most famous food preference, while he is primarily linked to marmalade.
He was featured in a surprising 2007 Marmite advertisement where he was tempted by a Marmite and cheese sandwich instead of his usual sweet fare. It shows the depth of the character's marketability.
But the marmalade link is certainly the stronger, definitive association. His preference for marmalade sandwiches, sometimes stored under his hat for emergencies,
led to him being used in marketing for Robertson's Golden Shred marmalades starting in 2010. Furthermore, he was central to the 2017 Marks & Spencer Christmas advertisement,
where he charmingly mistook a petty criminal who was stealing gifts for Santa Claus and then helped the criminal return the stolen goods.
The commercial narratives consistently reinforce the theme of innocent kindness conquering cynicism.
This all culminates in perhaps the single most significant moment of cultural integration, one that involved the highest echelons of British life.
The poignant and unexpected connection between Paddington and Queen Elizabeth II in 2022.
This was not just a commercial appearance. It was a pivotal cultural moment. Paddington appeared in a pre-recorded comedy segment for the Platinum Party at the Palace on June 4, 2022.
For the Queen's 70 years on the throne, the segment showed the Queen and Paddington sharing tea and, fittingly, marmalade sandwiches in one of the grand rooms of Buckingham Palace.
And the scene was universally described as delightful and memorable. The Queen, famed for her discretion and formality, revealed to Paddington that she, too, kept a marmalade sandwich in her signature handbag for emergencies.
They then shared a charming, coordinated moment, tapping their teacups to the beat of "We Will Rock You," right before Queen plus Adam Lambert performed the song live outside the palace.
A perfect synthesis of formality and fun.
And the poignancy of this moment became apparent just 3 months later. That sketch turned out to be one of the Queen's very last public appearances before her death in September 2022.
And because of that shared moment of warmth, humor, and connection, Paddington Bear immediately became a major, profound symbol of national mourning.
It was remarkable how quickly and naturally he assumed the role of an official-unofficial mascot for grief and comfort.
Mourners left thousands of stuffed bears and, fittingly, marmalade sandwiches at memorials across the country. The sheer volume was staggering.
The media also responded to this need for comfort. The BBC aired both Paddington films during the funeral weekend, underscoring his role as a source of gentle solace during a period of intense national emotion.
The image of the bear, who was himself an innocent outsider welcomed into a new home, offering comfort, provided a powerful unifying narrative during that transition.
And the legacy of that moment was cemented in action. Over 1,000 Paddington Bears and other teddy bears left as memorials at royal residences were collected by royal staff,
Professionally claimed.
and subsequently donated to Barnardo's Children's Services. This ensured that the symbol of kindness was immediately translated into an act of real-world charity, following the character's core ethos.
Furthermore, the original sketch with the Queen was so powerful that it won the Memorable Moment Award at the 2023 BAFTA Television Awards.
It confirmed its lasting impact on the collective consciousness. It showcases a character created as a wartime refugee analogy, seamlessly transforming into a unifying figure capable of comforting a nation in mourning.
That power to unify and teach is really what brings us to our final section, the academic and social commentary regarding Paddington's deeper meaning and his role as a figure of otherness.
When we look at the critical reception, even from the beginning, critics recognized his positive social role. The New York Times review of the first book, for instance, praised the welcoming nature of the Brown family.
And noted Paddington's resemblance to a child trying to figure things out, making the books approachable and enjoyable for young readers.
It was seen as charming, adventurous, and funny, but also fundamentally safe and moral.
But scholars specializing in children's literature and culture have naturally gone deeper, analyzing Paddington's entrenched role as an immigrant figure.
Yes, and focusing extensively on the concept of otherness. Angela Smith, a prominent scholar, noted that children could subtly learn about the complex political and psychological issues inherent in migration through the safety of the stories.
She observes, however, that while Paddington is accepted, he ultimately enforces assimilation to the dominant culture to a degree.
Meaning his path to acceptance involves mastering and adapting British ways, from tea rituals to social etiquette.
This complexity is important. Kyle Grayson expanded on this idea, arguing that despite the specific negotiations of differences and the kindness he receives, Paddington still fundamentally remains in a somewhat precarious social position.
He is still the outsider, whose often catastrophic mishaps like setting fire to the washing machine or flooding the house often stem from misunderstanding or misapplying social norms.
Regardless of his good intentions, the threat of losing acceptance is always present, which keeps the reader sympathetic to his unique position.
And this precariousness is why the character of Mr. Gruber is so essential to the overall message.
Right.
Lisa Dusenberry emphasized the positive counterpoint offered by Mr. Gruber, himself a Hungarian immigrant, who provides constant non-judgmental support and guides Paddington through his adjustment to the new society.
Gruber acts as a necessary bridge and a resource, offering friendship that is rooted in a shared, intimate understanding of displacement.
When you combine the character's foundational story, being a refugee analogy, with his unwavering commitment to his moral code, it's clear why industry leaders view him as such a powerful, positive symbol.
Producers Sonia Friedman and Eliza Lumley articulated this perfectly. They noted that the magic of Paddington is that through his wide-eyed innocence, he sees the very best in humanity.
Reminding us that love and kindness can triumph if we open our hearts and minds to one another.
And that philosophy of kindness and tolerance is not just abstract literary theory, it is taken seriously in the real world.
Actor Stephen Fry, who narrated some of the audiobooks, called Paddington a great British icon with his charm, humor, spirit of adventure, and generosity, placing him high among figures who define national character.
This inherent moral weight meant that when two individuals, identified as two RAF engineers, vandalized and stole a Paddington statue in Newbury, Berkshire in March 2025,
the incident generated outrage and carried far more symbolic significance than typical petty crime.
it absolutely did. At their sentencing, the judge delivered a commentary that went far beyond the typical legal procedure, highlighting the character's profound societal importance.
The judge explicitly noted that Paddington represents kindness, tolerance, and promotes integration and acceptance in our society.
And stated clearly that the engineer's actions were the antithesis of everything Paddington stands for.
That judicial statement truly captures the values Paddington embodies for the public consciousness. For a court of law to invoke a fictional bear as a standard for societal integration is rare and powerful.
It confirms that he operates as a recognized public moral compass. The damage caused to that symbol of acceptance was rightly deemed regrettable and serious.
So, if we synthesize this vast journey, we've traced Paddington from a small teddy bear bought on Christmas Eve,
Inspired by the vulnerability of WWII evacuees,
through a successful life in literature, media, and commerce, to becoming a national figure of solace shared with the monarchy.
the lasting effect of his cultural footprint is immense. He began as a quiet analogy for the refugee experience, reflecting the displacement of war and migration. He evolved into a commercial and media giant, and yet,
Through all the adaptations, he's maintained a simple, potent moral compass focused on politeness and uncompromising kindness.
this deep, unwavering moral foundation allows him to be adopted across demographics and cultures, sustaining his enduring effect on British and global values of tolerance.
Indeed. And it leaves us with a final point for you to reflect on. Think about how many fictional characters are created to tell a specific story, and how few manage to transcend their narrative to become a universal, positive symbol that can simultaneously comfort a nation in mourning, encourage large-scale charity for children, and champion the fundamental values of tolerance and acceptance on an international scale.
Leading, for instance, to a brand new musical, Paddington. the musical, premiering in London's West End in 2025.
That is the definition of a lasting legacy.
Thanks for listening.